What's up, everyone? Welcome to this live stream. A little bit late, just been getting everything prepped to give a bit of feedback to you. So I'll let some of you join. Let me know if you are here. Nice to see some of you popping onto the stream. I know a lot of people have assessments at the moment. You're probably doing essays that you're desperate for feedback for. So keen to give you some feedback. I've got a few lined up. It was more or less just first in, first served kind of policy here with the essays that you guys have submitted. So I'm going to go through those. Hello, Evie. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Anyone else that's jumping on, we're about to do some live feedback of essays, bound to help all of you improve your writing. So keen to get into that. But if you have any general questions to kick us off, please do put them into the chat. Happy to answer anything about your assessments. What kind of questions have you been getting? Do you want me to help you break down a question? Do you want help better understanding the nature of your task? What's important? What's not? How do you structure something? Add some questions in there. So Evie, you've submitted a body paragraph on 1984. I will try and get to that. I'll have a check if it's on there. Did you submit that recently or last week? Let me know and I'll try and pull that up. Bear with me at the start. I think we've got a couple to get through that are not related to that. But if you've done a body paragraph, that's good because today I'm going to be focusing on those body paragraphs. We did a couple of introductions last time. Let's break down some bodies, and it's quite recent. That's good. Let's break down some body paragraphs and learn how we can improve those. Small tweaks, small adjustments, that will make a big difference. So I'm going to get into the first one. And as I said, if you have a question, put it into the chat. Keen to get some feedback from you. And let's get into it. I will share my screen with you. Hopefully everything is going to come through okay here. Let's see if we can get this working in a way that makes sense. Here we are. Let me just hide this comment. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see this. So I am on the new Jedd-AI platform. So this is an extension of Jeddle. If you're not on there, get on there because you can not only get immediate feedback using our AI marking tool for your essays, for other types of tasks as well, but you can also access the community and you can get other people to look at your work. So we're using Jeddle's tool right now, which is called Jedd-AI. Although, of course, in this case, I'm not using the AI feedback. I'm doing the human feedback side of things. So that is also available on there. Okay, so let's get into this. Let's have a look at this first response. I'll zoom in a little bit so that things are easier for you guys to see. Hopefully that is clearer. And let's jump in. So the question here is for Module A of English Standard. And the question is, language is a powerful vehicle that develops an individual's distinct identity and sense of belonging to community. To what extent is this true of your prescribed text? Okay, so language is a powerful vehicle. So we're talking about language being powerful. It develops an individual's identity. So identity is a key word, and that's the name of the whole rubric and the name of the whole module, essentially. And sense of belonging to community. Now, belonging to community, that's key as well, because we need to ask ourselves, what community are we belonging to? I think we might have done an introduction to this question last time. So we're going to go through this body paragraph, see how we can improve it. Okay, so from the film's outset, this is body paragraph 1. This is the first body paragraph, not the introduction of this response. From the film's outset, always like that kind of start because it just kind of eases us into it. It doesn't feel abrupt, like you're just jumping to some random scene from the film. And in this case, we're doing The Castle. The Castle is the film for context here, okay? So the film, The Castle, is being analyzed in relation to this question. From the film's outset, which means outset means from the beginning, the value of family accentuates language's impact in constructing individual and community personas. Okay, let's break down that topic sentence. This is the point sentence or topic sentence. From the film's outset, and you know what? From the film's outset, I do like, but I like it in relation to the first piece of evidence. I don't necessarily like it for the topic sentence because it sounds like you're only analyzing kind of the very start, which in a way you are. You're saying from the outset. It does sound like you are doing it from the beginning and then covering more of the film. But I would probably reserve this kind of phrase here for maybe the first piece of evidence. Okay, so the value of family, I'm thinking about how that links to the question. I mean, links to kind of community, belonging to community, accentuates language's impact in constructing individual and community personas. Personas also means identity. So look, this is a bit of a hard topic sentence to follow. I would say that's the main issue here. It's just not super clear. So the clarity is not there. We need to make this clearer. The value of family, we want to link it here. You haven't actually said how language is powerful. You've said the value of family accentuates language's impact, but you haven't really said anything about language. Okay, so let's try reconstruct this. You can see here, this is the Jedd-AI platform here. Quick feedback, that's what we like. We're going to try and rewrite parts of this, okay? But I'm going to try and identify the area that is in need of improvement here. I mean, it's not so much lack of specificity, although that is an issue. I just think this isn't a clear-cut answer to this question. It hasn't actually used the words of the question. So let's just say reference to the question. And do we want to try to use the actual key terms? I mean, you have used language. You have used community. You didn't use belonging. I don't think you've expanded on those terms enough, right? So I'm going to say you should unpack them rather than just kind of throwing them in. So you need to unpack the key terms of the question, okay? And then what I'm going to put here is an alternative. So we're going to do a couple of examples here. And this is what you get with Jedd-AI, automatically generated within about a minute. So for the whole essay, of course. Now, for example, how can we do it? We can say, and you need to like kind of link it to your text as well. So it's like in the castle, Sitch. Rob Sitch is the director, so you always refer to them. It's good to actually mention the text in your topic sentence for the most part. Sometimes you don't have to, but I typically would recommend doing that just to make it clearer. In the castle, Sitch uses or demonstrates the power of, and I don't know if this, I haven't read the rest of this yet. This is all live, so I'm just going to do an example of a type of language. Maybe it's satirical language, right? Maybe it's colloquial language. But we want to use a kind of general language here to try and suit the idea that we're trying to explore. So maybe it is satirical language. Maybe I'm going to end up changing this type of language to something else after reading the rest of it. In the castle, Sitch demonstrates the power of satirical language. Again, I'm unpacking the word language, right? And I'm saying it's powerful. It's the power of satirical language, right? To affirm one's, now, what do we want to talk about here? A distinctive identity, right? That, and then we need to relate that to belonging to some kind of community. So are we going to say it's a familial community or it's the Australian community? You need to be specific here in some way. So in the castle, Sitch demonstrates the power of satirical language to affirm one's, well, and again, it might be something else like, you know, colloquial language or of the Australian vernacular, right? I'm just going to play around with this. You'll notice that I chop and change things as I read it because I'm thinking on the spot and also trying to consider what you might be talking about later on. So Sitch demonstrates the power of the Australian vernacular, which is the Australian language, right? Power of the Australian to affirm one's sense of belonging to family. See, it's more specific now because the question didn't say family, but I'm going to say family so that I'm actually answering it. The power of the Australian vernacular to affirm one's sense of belonging to family. I'm just going to kind of stop it there, and we can come back and make it a little bit more sophisticated later. But I feel like that just shows how you can actually say something specific to language, and you're saying belonging to family. So there's two unpacks there, There's two expansions of two key terms that are in that example, okay? So let's go to the next one. Dale Kerrigan's opening line, and I won't worry too much about grammar and punctuation here, but of course you should have quotation marks there. Dale Kerrigan's opening line, "This is my story," acts as a powerful introduction to the Kerrigan family. Now, the issue with this piece of evidence is it's not really telling us anything, right? You go on to expand on it, but it feels like maybe you'll be able to merge these sentences because you're not telling us a whole lot here. Okay, so the possessive pronoun my, accompanied by establishing shots of their humble home and simple costuming. Okay, good technical analysis going on here. Costuming, establishing shots, talking about camera shots, that's good. Signals to viewers that the film will showcase their comfortable and unassuming lifestyle, which may not resonate with all audience members on a personal level. Okay, I'm not sure how relevant this last bit is, like this, which may not resonate with all audience members on a personal level. So is that a necessary detail? I'm not sure. It doesn't look like it for that question, but maybe you'll end up proving it, maybe not. For now, I'm just going to say for this part at least, we've got an issue of clear and concise expression. Remove this section to avoid unnecessary details. That is an easy cut there, okay? So we're going to remove this bit, and then let's go back to the other one. I think we merge these two because I really don't think you need to have them over two sentences. So does this tie? This probably ties into maybe clear and concise, or maybe it's just the sentence length and structure. So merge these sentences into one sentence and remove any unnecessary detail. So let me go back to where that was. There we go. Merge these sentences. So if we're merging them, for example, I think you can just kind of ignore the starting bit, like his opening line, da 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 da. The possessive pronoun, okay. Let's start with the technique, all right? Whenever you want to restructure something or you want to get to the point faster, just start with the technique. So you want to say the possessive pronoun my in, now I'm going to merge in this section from the first sentence because I've highlighted these two sentences, right? In Dale Kerrigan's, now I can say opening line here, opening line, this is my story, right? The possessive pronoun my in Dale's opening line. See how we lead with the technique rather than leading with the quote? Because initially it said Dale's opening line, this is my story, acts as a powerful introduction. We don't need to say it's a powerful introduction. We can say that the possessive pronoun technique in that quote acts as a powerful introduction to more important things, right? Or we can merge in some of these other techniques, right? So I think we go coupled with, or you say accompanied by, coupled with establishing. I'll do accompanied by. I'll keep your language there. I like it because it's not just coupling; it's multiple things you're talking about here. Accompanied by establishing shots of. You say there, but you're really only talking about Dale, right? Of his humble family home and simple costuming. Now you say signals to viewers, okay? Yeah, you can say that. I mean, you say signals to viewers that the film will showcase. Notice the unnecessary language there. Signals to viewers that the film will showcase. Are you just saying foreshadows? But it doesn't even, you don't even need any of that. It just reveals their unassuming lifestyle. See how much more concise you can be there? Reveals the Kerrigans, because now I want to talk about the family as a whole. Unassuming lifestyle. And, okay, unassuming lifestyle. And what else do you say? And that's it. You don't really say anything else. You just say it may or may not resonate with audiences. It's like, okay, I could say that about everything. I really want to make sure, have I linked that to language enough? Or you say the possessive pronoun, my, in his opening line, accompanied by establishing shots, reveals the Kerrigan's unassuming lifestyle. Like, you might think, oh, well, I don't know if I've really said enough now. Well, I'm just exposing what you had said because that's really what I could get out of all those two sentences. But look how much more concisely you can actually say that point. It's a good point. Lots of techniques. It's quite a simple effect, though. It just says reveals their unassuming lifestyle. We would ideally want to link that to their sense of belonging, right? But that unassuming lifestyle provides a comfortable You could say a sense of belonging through the comfort, right? Through comfort. So maybe we can actually add to that and say it reveals the Kerrigan's unassuming lifestyle as part of their kind of distinctive, Australian or cultural, as part of their distinctive cultural identity, right? And now I'm linking it to identity in there. And that's how we can improve that line. So there you go. We're already cutting things down quite a lot. Let's go to the next one. I'll just check out some questions. Obviously, you're all just asking questions at the moment about other things. I just want to stay focused on this for now. Okay, so these elements collectively establish the Kerrigan's identity within the working class community of Australia. Okay, so good thing about this is you're telling me the type of community here, but look how you've used up a whole sentence just to break down that it's a working class community. Okay, well, again, you could actually get rid of that. All I need from that whole sentence is the working class part. And you can just work that in here as part of their working class identity. So I'm going to go back up and edit my other one because I want to make everything more compact. So instead of saying the Kerrigan's as part of their working class, so you have the ingredients here, you just haven't mixed them together as efficiently as possible. So working class identity, perfect. There you go. So that is an example of how you can merge literally 3 sentences into one. And that's something I've been really focusing on with students lately. How can you say what you want to say in fewer words? Okay, that's ultimately it. So the issue here was, once again, sentence length and structure, just spending too much time on unnecessary things. That got merged, and now we have one sentence that captures it all. Daryl, the father, Daryl, the father, I mean, we probably don't even need that at this stage. Daryl illuminates language's ability through his and Steve's use of the trading post to buy and sell used goods. See, what this is doing is almost storytelling, right? You are linking it to language's ability, but language's ability to what? It illuminates language's ability to what? Through his and Steve's use of the trading post. So unfinished there, you haven't actually specified what you mean. Not sure what you mean there. So you need to actually be specific, right? Expand on this idea. And here you say through his and Steve's use of the trading post to buy and sell goods. It's a little bit storytelling here for my liking. So we'll go down and we'll put this to analytical tone. I think you are, you're not leading with the evidence. You're describing plot and characters, you see? So that's the issue with that sentence. How can we improve it? I think that's going to be based on the next sentence. Daryl's frequent use of the colloquial phrase. See, you could almost, instead of saying phrase, say language, because that's the key word of the question here. Daryl's frequent use of the colloquial phrase, tell him he's dreaming, to dismiss overvalued products or unrealistic propositions, underscores Daryl as pragmatic and rational within the narrative. Okay, sure. So not only is it a working class identity, but they also they're very practical and they don't overvalue materialistic things, right? They live a humble lifestyle. So let's rephrase this, because I like this part. There's deeper meaning within it, right? Let's rephrase this. I just think we could maybe, I think we could just say it in a nicer way, really. So let's go with, I'm going to go with avoid any unnecessary detail on that one. And because I think you're listing a little bit there as well. So let's see if we can do this in a shorter amount of time or space or words. Daryl's frequent use of the colloquial. Okay. So Daryl's frequent use of, sure. You can do frequent. I'll do repeated. Daryl's repeated use of colloquial language, particularly, right? He often uses colloquial language, right? But it's particularly the phrase, tell him he's dreaming. And you could say that's like an iconic phrase, right? Through the culturally iconic phrase, tell him he's dreaming, to dismiss particularly the culturally iconic phrase in relation to what are we saying? Overpriced, overvalued products, overpriced products or goods, right? We'll do a comma there. And then you say underscores, I'll just say emphasizes the pragmatism that shapes Daryl's kind of, you could say, humble, the pragmatism that shapes his humble identity, right? As part of I'm talking about making it more concise. I don't want to make it longer. Let's just do it like that. But notice every time I'm saying identity, I'm trying to use a word before it to make it specific. And I've also kind of cut out any unnecessary details there. We've just got straight to the point. Overpriced products, fine. We don't need to also add unrealistic propositions, right? You could add those things. I'm just trying to make it a little bit shorter for you. So I think that kind of gets to it. And this might be a moreover if it's following on from our previous point, because it's a further aspect of his identity. So that sentence turns into this one. There we go. And let's continue. Daryl's Australian vernacular. Okay, vernacular is good. Vernacular means a language that is specific to a particular group of people, right? So if it's an Australian vernacular, it's language that you associate with how Australians speak, so Australian slang. Daryl's Australian vernacular serves as a defining feature of his identity. Well, we're already saying that. We've just given 2 examples of that. So do you really need to say this? If you wanted to say this, then that's more like a topic sentence. So you kind of, again, this is unnecessary because you've proven this in the last 2 sentences. Setting him apart from other characters and imbuing him, I like the word imbuing, it imbues him with a unique sense of authenticity and integrity. So this is good, but this sentence here is kind of just like, not out of nowhere, but it is not really deserving of being in the middle of this paragraph, or it's not best suited there. It's a really nice sentence. I would almost think this is better as, it could be your link sentence, or it could be a topic sentence, but I wouldn't just have it kind of stranded here in the middle. Okay, so in terms of use of evidence, I would include a technique within this, to strengthen your analysis, right? Try to avoid having these concept-based sentences where it's just an idea all throughout the body paragraph, and instead try to tie everything to evidence so that you're doing more with your time. You only have so much time to get through your points. But really nice sentence. I like this idea of authenticity, integrity, but just be careful here with listing. Authenticity, integrity. You've grouped those 2 words together. You only need to say one, and you can then reserve the other word for another part or another relevant piece of evidence. Okay, so listing doesn't make your point stronger. It actually weakens it, because a more punchy sentence is the one that just says the one specific thing. Okay, so try to avoid listing here. That's the doubling up problem that I've spoken about before. The English language is continuously used as a means to symbolize, or of symbolizing, the family's connection when the Kerrigan family receives their compulsory acquisition letter. So see here how this is another kind of descriptive, it's a half descriptive, half analytical sentence. It's a tricky one because you say it's a means of symbolizing, but you haven't provided a specific technique to go with it. You've just said generally that the language symbolizes something. So it'd be great to have a specific example. Like you've got symbolize, but what we really want is a specific example, not just this general symbolize point, okay? So we need more engagement with specific techniques and examples. The staging of the scene where they are huddled around the letter in confusion and disbelief. See how you've done the doubling up problem? Doubling up there, okay? So, is that under concision? let's see. I mean, you have got, I'll try and, yeah, avoid simply listing. See, you're listing things there. You're listing buzzwords. That's what you're doing. You're listing buzzwords, confusion and disbelief, right? Just pick one. Pick one for impact. Confusion is fine. Okay. Or disbelief. I mean, around the letter in, I actually think disbelief sounds better. Okay. And that highlights the vulnerability of their beloved home, comma, which is affectionately referred to as the castle. Well, it's like a castle to them, right? So yeah, the castle is symbolic, right? That obviously is figurative. It's like their castle because they feel such a sense of belonging and comfort to it. But the staging of the scene where they huddled around. So the staging of the scene, in terms of the technique, the specific technique there, you would call that the mise-en-scene, right? That is the composition of the scene. That's how they're set up. So just refer to the mise-en-scene here when you actually talk about this, okay? Because you say the staging of the scene. So something like within the mise-en-scene, right? Or shaping the mise-en-scene, or within the mise-en-scene, the kind of placement of the characters or of the family, where they are huddled around. The placement of the characters huddled around the letter in disbelief. Right? So within the mise-en-scene, the placement of the characters. So you just need to have that more technical language here rather than just saying the staging. But staging is not too bad, to be honest. This moment symbolizes, and again, you've said symbolize up there, try to avoid repeating words, not just the physical structure, but the very heart of their collective identity as a tightly knit community. This is actually a pretty good paragraph. So whoever wrote this, well done. It's a great effort. This is a body paragraph. I think you can tell by going through it. We just need some more specific examples, right? More specific examples. You don't necessarily need more quotes. So when you guys are analyzing a film, you don't necessarily need more quotes, but more engagement with camera shots, dialogue, sound is a big one as well. More engagement with the specific scenes there would be good, and making it more concise, just making things more compact. Overall, I do really like this paragraph. I mean, for me, this is sitting, it's sitting around the B range. This in terms of if I'm grading the quality of this, I think it's actually pretty strong. I think the topic sentence lets it down a little bit because it's just got all these buzzwords in there, but not a clear point. It was probably a bit lower than a B grade at that point, but it kind of made up with some really nice examples from the shot here, well written. So it was kind of like that B to C. But overall, I think some solid points, easy to follow, well structured. Just needs to be more compact, but I see the progression of ideas there. It's somewhere in that B range, I would say. So it's a solid effort overall, and you've clearly got some things to work on there. Hopefully those examples help. Any questions on that in the comments before I just move on to the next one? I know a few of you have submitted other things. I'm trying to get to things as much as I can. I've got another one lined up that we'll go to in just a moment. Let me just have a look if there's any general questions before I move on to the next. So hello to everyone. Thanks for joining, doing some essay feedback. We're using the Jedd-AI tool, which you can access via jeddl.com. You'll find Jedd-AI, get immediate feedback for your essays in this kind of format, exactly what you're seeing here. You'll get it automatically generated in the style that I would normally present the feedback in. So pretty revolutionary tool right there. Groovy, I do remember you. Nice to see you. You submitted a paragraph on Tempest Hagseed. I was about to go through it. Oh, you're holding me to it. I hope it's the one that I've got lined up here. Groovy, let me know if the one I pull up next is yours, because I remember speaking to you. I think I said I'd go through it today. So I will, stick to my word as I try to do and go through that. I've definitely got a Tempest Hagseed one in the pipeline. So let me know if the next one is yours. Otherwise, I will do yours, the one after this. In this session, I'll do it. Okay, it'll be the one. If it's not the next one, it'll be the one after. All right. Okay, this is from Talara. You submitted a thesis on Tempest Hagseed. Not doing introductions today, but in the next session, I can go over that. Otherwise, if it's just a sentence or two, if you stick around until I'm about to wrap up, you can post something in the chat. You can post a sentence or two directly into the chat, and I'll give you some on-the-spot feedback on that. Okay, but just focusing on body paragraphs today. In terms of paragraph structure for Tempest and Hagseed, I know a lot of you are doing a Module A essay at the moment. So if you're doing the Tempest and Hagseed, paragraph structure-wise, it really does depend on your speed, your ability on the day to write 4 paragraphs or 3 or 2. You have to be honest with yourself about what you can do there. Some schools just push doing 2 paragraphs in total if they're being realistic about how much students can write. Because let me give you the range, okay? It goes from an introduction and 2 paragraphs, 2 body paragraphs and a conclusion, to an introduction and 4 body paragraphs and a conclusion. So that's the range, right? And you've got 3 body paragraphs in the middle. So the structure that I would typically recommend, if you're able to write concisely and fast, right? And you're able to do all of this in about 35 minutes, if in 35 minutes, and that's the maximum time I'd go up to, I like aiming for about 32 minutes, but if in 35 minutes, you can write 4 body paragraphs, splitting the essay into essentially 2 halves, then I would do that, right? That would be my first go-to if I can do that in 32 to 35 minutes. Okay, if I can't do that, I'm going to do a different structure. But if I do the 4 body paragraph structure, I'm going to do, and I'll just put it in the comments here. So Tempest Hagseed, if I'm doing a 4 body, I'm doing the first half, I'm going to do on this idea of imprisonment. Okay, you can talk about it in terms of other words. Imprisonment is just the guiding word here. And what you'll do is you'll do Tempest, how that explores imprisonment, and then you'll do Hagseed, exploring the differences, why there are differences, that dialogue, that conversation that's taking place between Atwood and Shakespeare. And then you're going to do freedom. How is there an element of freedom explored in each one? How is there transformation? That's another word you could use instead of freedom. And then again, you look at it in terms of Tempest, and then how that looks like in Hagseed. So I'm going to put that into the chat right now. Junkie has said it, you know, imprisonment, freedom. Yeah, you've listed different themes there, Junkie, but make sure that in your essay, you want to have a clean and clear progression, right? What do I mean by that? You need 2 distinct ideas that build on top of one another. So Tempest Hagseed, I would do the first body paragraph on how the Tempest explores imprisonment, followed by how Hagseed explores imprisonment. Then I would talk about how the Tempest explores freedom, because freedom comes after imprisonment, and then how Hagseed explores freedom, right? Because Hagseed comes after the Tempest. So there's a natural flow to that structure. Now, if you can't write fast enough to do the 4 bodies, which is a lot of people, another way that you can approach this is to actually, and I'm just going to put this back up here so I can talk about this. If you are not able to do 4 body paragraphs in the allocated time, which, as I said, if you're practicing your drafts, is about 35 minutes, 32 to 35 minutes, not 40, because you need to allow time to respond to an unseen question, to think about it, to adapt your existing essay to it. So if you can't do 4 body paragraphs in 32 to 34 minutes, I would do 3 paragraphs, but you can still do the same start of the structure that I've got on screen. So you can do the first paragraph on imprisonment in the Tempest, the second paragraph on imprisonment in Hagseed, and then a slightly longer third paragraph that compares within the paragraph how the Tempest and Hagseed approach freedom, the concept of freedom. How are the characters freed from their types of imprisonment? Okay, so that's a 3 body structure. So you still do the imprisonment for each one, and then you merge the last 2 and make them shorter. It's like making the second half of that 4 body paragraph structure condensed and doing 2 pieces of evidence for each text in that third body paragraph, where you talk about freedom in relation to both texts in the same paragraph. Okay, so that's the 3 body. And then if you can't do a full essay in up to 35 minutes, with 3 body paragraphs like that, then you just do 2, and you talk about imprisonment in the first paragraph, and then you talk about freedom in the second paragraph, and you will talk about both texts within each within each paragraph. Okay, so if you have to do 2 bodies, Tempest. Let me see if I can write it in here. Okay, I am on the wrong screen. Give me a second. If you're doing 2 body paragraphs, then I would, here we go, I'm back, do this structure. I'm going to put it on the screen in a second, and then I'm going to go through another live example. So if you're doing a 2 body, you're doing imprisonment, and you're doing tempest, maybe 2 pieces of evidence, 2 examples, right? Each with a technique, plus hag seed with 2 pieces of evidence, 2 times evidence. And then you're going to go on to the freedom and do the same. Okay, I'm going to put this up on the screen right now. So tempest, tag seed, 2 bodies, imprisonment, 2 pieces of evidence from each text, comparing them, and then you do the same for the second body, which is on freedom. All right, hopefully that helps answer that question. Imprisonment, freedom are the best and most adaptable ideas for a base essay, Leo. That is what I believe to be the case after having looked at a lot of past questions, practice questions. Hopefully that answers all your questions on, what ideas, what structure to use, because that is the strongest kind of core draft essay structure that I've seen, that I've come up with. So I would use that one. Okay. Let's go on to the next review. And who was I speaking to before? Grooby. Grooby, I hope this is yours. So let's pull it up. I'm going to share the screen. Let's pull it up. All right. So, is that going to be yours? All right, Grooby, you tell me before I look at this. Is this yours? I'm going to give you a couple seconds to confirm, because you sent a new one recently. You sent a new one. Oh, you've changed it since last week. So is the one I'm looking at an old one? We certainly don't want that. Let me just hide that. So again, I'm on the new Jedd-AI feedback platform, which I'm really excited about. Yes, this is yours. So Grooby, do you want me to look at this one? I mean, to put in your new one is going to take a little bit. It's the older one, yes. You still happy for me to look at this, Grooby, or you've made significant changes? You'll still benefit from the feedback, I suppose. Let me know how different they are before I get into this one. This is the topic sentence of my new one. Okay, you're going to put it in the chat. So, with sustained and re-envisaged Shakespeare. All right, I'll read that in a second. I'm going to go with this one, Grooby. Glad it's yours. Guys, what do we read first? Obviously, we read the question. Composers appropriate texts from the past in order to challenge our assumptions about the present. So notice how this question, like a lot of Module A questions for textual conversations, presents the question through the lens of the later text. In this case, Hagseed, because Hagseed was composed after the Tempest, like 400 years after, or even more. Okay, so often the Module A text wants you to look at it. It wants you to look at the module from the perspective of the second text in terms of how that has adapted, changed, played with the original text. The question often comes from that retrospective frame where you're looking back. Okay, so questions will often be framed from the perspective of the later composer and what they're doing to the original text. So keep that in mind, because it does impact the way you word things. So when it says composers appropriate texts, here it means Shakespeare. And if you're not doing Tempest Hagseed, you just apply what I'm saying to your texts. If you're studying a comparison between any 2 texts, you can apply this same process, this same thought process. So composers, that is Shakespeare, appropriate text from the past, that is Now I'm contradicting myself. Composers appropriate text that is Atwood, Margaret Atwood from Hagseed, and the text from the past is The Tempest. So Margaret Atwood has appropriated The Tempest in order to challenge our assumptions about contemporary society, because Hagseed came out in 2016. So that's contemporary society. That's the now. Contemporary means the time we live in now. And we basically need to talk about how our assumptions about our present context are being challenged. So how we think about not just Shakespeare, but also the present world that we live in. What are some of the big kind of contextual concerns that we have at the moment? Postmodernism is a big one that's explored in the text, and about where truth comes from and how originality might be this kind of illusory concept that, maybe nothing is original anymore, or maybe everything's original and you just have to keep experimenting with things because anything could be original if you change it around enough, right? That's one of those postmodern ideas. Okay, but also we live in a time where the way that someone would think about imprisonment is much more through a psychological lens, right? So people think about mental health a lot more now, whereas back in Shakespeare's time, mental health wasn't really a term or a concept that was talked about. So it is interesting studying a text through this psychoanalytical lens or psychoanalytic lens, whereby suffering and imprisonment is internalized. It's an internal experience rather than an external environmental one. Because in Shakespeare's The Tempest, a lot of the suffering occurs on that metaphysical level through the supernatural intervention, and it occurs in a physical realm in the sense of being abandoned or exiled, like Prospero is in The Tempest. So you see different forms of imprisonment to match the concerns of each composer's context. And there are a couple of examples. But yes, how are we going to be challenged about our present? Well, let's have a look at this paragraph. And I know that the first topic sentence has changed. So let me have a look at Groovy's topic sentence. Here it is on the screen. This is the new topic sentence, so we can ignore this one for this question. Atwood sustains and re-envisions. So she sustains and envisions. I'm trying to say that word. It's a funny start because you're kind of saying two contradictory things. So you might want to say Atwood simultaneously sustains and re-envisages or re-envisions Shakespeare's oppressive narrative, right? I wouldn't use re-envisions. I would say like reimagines or reframes. Use a word that's actually from the module description. When you go and read that rubric on Module A textual conversations, it actually says the words reframes and reimagines. So Atwood sustains and re-envisages. Try and be careful with how you use it. Say Atwood both sustains or Atwood simultaneously sustains and innovates or reframes Shakespeare's oppressive narrative, colliding with it, and Shakespeare's oppressive narrative colliding with it. Okay, maybe comma after that. It's a little bit clunky there, hard to follow. Employing the arts as a transformative tool for the liberation, whereby or thereby urging I imagine you tried to say thereby after that, urging a reassessment of current perceptions. Now, see how you've current perceptions of justice and moral redemption. Now, current perceptions of justice and moral redemption, you're doing that doubling up issue, right? The doubling up problem. So you are listing multiple things that are very similar without expanding on one of them, which means you're not going deep enough into one. You're trying to kind of impress the marker by listing lots of things rather than actually showing you have a deeper understanding of one of those words, right? Which probably means you understand all of those things better. So don't list multiple things and go deeper into one. And I'm just going to focus on, again, the main point of this topic sentence, which is that Atwood's doing two things. She's sustaining that oppressive narrative. The colliding with it part doesn't quite make sense to me. Maybe that's just a grammatical thing. Employing the arts as a transformative tool for the liberation. as a transformative tool for liberation, comma, thereby urging a reassessment of current perceptions of justice. Okay, yeah, you could be more specific with that. Yeah, contemporary perceptions of justice within a progressive, it's a progressive society that we live in, a progressive 21st century context, right? There's a reassessment for or within a 21st century audience, which is progressive. So use the word progressive on there to be specific. All right, that's a couple of things, but I'm interested to see how you expand on this arts element, but we'll go from there because it's hard for me to make a full assessment without taking into account everything else. So you want me to start from here then? While Margaret Atwood's Hagseed, oh, and I'll just hide this. Sorry, I realize that is probably in the way for everyone. Okay. From here, guys. While Margaret Atwood's Hagseed, reflective, I'm not going to focus on grammar and stuff, so I'm just going to go with it, okay? But make sure you go download Grammarly when you type up these. Just download a free version of Grammarly, give them a plug, because that'll pick up on these grammatical errors as you're typing. You can't really afford to be having grammatical errors for your year 12 essays, okay? So get all of that sorted. I'm not going to focus on that because I want to focus on the more important things, but you do need to get your grammar intact. While Margaret Atwood's Hagseed is reflective of a more egalitarian postmodern context, good. Just be careful with like bundling all these big words together, like egalitarian, postmodern. They're very different things. Just because we're a postmodern context doesn't mean that we're a fairer society. Egalitarian means that we're fairer. Postmodern means that we have far more skepticism over tradition and truth, and we think everyone's version of reality is correct. That's what postmodernism is, right? Like there's no one truth. We have to question everything. And egalitarian is about being fairer. So they're actually not related at all. And therefore, I wouldn't really bundle them because I feel like you could use those terms more strategically in different places where they actually have the most impact. So don't waste these nice contextual terms that aren't necessarily compatible, but also just don't pair together, and also just waste an opportunity to talk about context in another sentence, right? Where you could have used one of those words. So that would be the first thing, is we would kind of move one of these. Okay. Because this is a pretty vague reference to context as well. So if we go down to our comments here about use of context, let's see here, we want to actually, we don't want to replace, but we want to make it more specific in terms of one of them, okay? So it's reflective of what about the postmodern context, okay? It's reflective of the egalitarian values of her 21st century audience, maybe, right? Just say something about one of those terms. Use postmodern elsewhere where it makes sense about the skepticism or multiple truths, experimentation, things like that. Okay. Mark, by the way, quick interjection here. You have a class essay coming up. Not sure what two themes will work together. I look at my comments earlier. It's imprisonment and freedom, and look at the different ways that those two concepts are explored. Highly adaptable to any kind of other theme that could be in a question. Okay, now, while Margaret Atwood's Hagseed is reflective of a more egalitarian context, mirrors the oppressive Shakespearean narrative by liberating, and then you say full stop. Look, the grammar's all over the place here, I'm going to be honest, because you're saying while. Why would you say while and then finish the sentence there? I guess you want to say you want to do a comma there and say it mirrors. While it does that, it mirrors the oppressive Shakespearean narrative. You just said that in your topic sentence, though. So unless I'm misreading that, I know I looked at your new topic sentence, so words here. So I would put this to, remove this section because you just said that in your new topic sentence. By initially presenting Prospero's island as a microcosm of the New World, okay, I like where you're going here now. This is where I get straight into. Shakespeare engages with Eurocentric colonialist views from the Age of Discovery. Here we go. This is a very good context-driven sentence that assume all indigenous people to be savages. All right. Very nice lead in. I hope in the next sentence you come in with some specific evidence. But that's a beautiful sentence that is layered with relevant and meaningful contextual elements. So everyone can learn from this sentence. Great sentence, Groovy. Okay. In the opening act, Prospero and his subjugated native Caliban's confrontation unfolds marked by, you're just lacking flow with this. What I would recommend, Groovy, because I know you'll be able to fix this, read your sentences out loud to yourself as if it's a speech. And if you're kind of finding that it's not flowing and you're having to start, stop like I was just there, you need to rewrite it so it flows clearly. Get some commas in there where they should be, okay? Because you've got such good content in parts of this. And then if I can't even read this properly, that's going to detract. In the opening act, Prospero and his subjugated native Caliban's confrontation, bit wordy, unfolds marked by Caliban's caesura-laden accusation of usurpation. So very wordy here, unnecessarily wordy. It's not going to impress after a while, okay? It's actually going to confuse. Impress, don't confuse, which means you've got to get that balance right. Now, I know you've just sent through another version of it. Let's have a look at the new and improved version. In the opening act, Prospero was confronted by the subjugated Caliban's caesura. So if you have punctuation around the middle of the line in a poem or an extract from a play even, then that's called caesura, okay? And let's continue with that one. Caesura laden, so you're saying it's styled, that's with, and therefore, much like Australia's history, right? British colonization and new land, and they take control over it even though there are already people living there. Okay, so that's what this idea is about. Accentuating his victimized possession. Love it. Nice language, Groovy. That's some band 6 language right there. Very nice. Okay, and by the way, everyone watching, if you want feedback like this, you can either subscribe to Jedd-AI via the Jedd-AI website, Jedd-AI.com. Jedd-AI will give you automatic feedback on all of this, or you can access our community and submit things for feedback by our team or someone else from the community. And that's one way of doing it, through the website, through the Jedd-AI subscription. Go to the feedback hub. Otherwise, you can use the link and wait for me to, or someone else to provide feedback via one of these live streams. It's probably going to be me at this stage because I like doing them. But yeah, I try to do them weekly, but things come up. I did it last week. We're doing it today. I'll try and keep them going. But they're the two ways to get this kind of feedback, Ramia. So use the link in the description, submit it, and we'll try and get to it. The sooner you submit, the more likely you are to get reviewed. Okay. So by initially presenting Prospero's microcosm, okay, we've been through that. Post caesura, just get rid of that. You don't need to, it sounds funny because it's just a technique that's used. So in terms of being clear and concise, just remove that to avoid unnecessary detail. Shakespeare's use of disrupted metrical rhythm symbolically mirrors the unnatural upheaval of Prospero's power in Milan and challenges Caliban's rightful claim to the island. Okay, so you've got more analysis here. or I assume this relates to this quote back here. I assume. But otherwise, I think I would try and get a quotation at least embedded in here, right? At least embedded. I think you're going to bring in an example here. Prospero's metaphoric claim that Caliban is a born devil whose nature nurture can never stick. Great line. Whose nature nurture can never stick, right? He's saying you're so evil, right? You're so evil that you can't even be loved, right? Because nurture, which is like love, it will never stick to you, right? You're just so evil. You're like a devil. Prospero sees him like that because he thinks he made advances on his daughter. Maybe true, maybe not. We don't know. We only hear that story from Prospero's perspective. And that's why it's interesting to see Caliban recharacterized in Hagseed. But anyway, you've got a quote here: through dehumanizing language pushes the Eurocentric. Now, hadn't you said Eurocentric elsewhere? You said Eurocentric up here. So just be careful with repetition of the similar words, right? If you're going to say, a contextual reference, if you're going to include a contextual reference, make sure it's distinct and you're not just repeating yourself. So we'll go to use of context, replace with a different word, right? Replace with a different reference. Caliban's innate inferiority to justify his marginalization, position in the audience to initially perceive the marginalized as lesser, in line with historical assumptions of dominance and subjugation. So probably one too many lines there. It's getting clunky, right? It's getting clunky. So what you need to be careful of there is your sentence length and structure, right? You're better off splitting this into two shorter sentences or restructuring. That's the issue I'm seeing a lot with this response, is it just needs some restructuring. And going back to that other sentence that I was looking at, this one here, try and incorporate a quote in there. So include a technique. Well, I know you've got disrupted metrical rhythm. I should actually say include a quote, include an example would be a more relevant, let me just replace that, would be a more relevant piece of feedback for you, okay? So if you guys find that you have sentences like this in the middle of your paragraph and they're just kind of providing some more details, but you don't have a quote or a specific piece of evidence or an example, then try and incorporate those in, right? I'll see what the most relevant comment is here. Let's see if we've got it. Should be something on, I mean, it's got use of techniques, but we really just want to say use an example, right? Replace with another piece of evidence. We more just want to include a quote. So somewhere in here we'd be able to find that, but I'm just going to make a manual comment here. Incorporate a quote, maybe a short quote, right? Short quote to strengthen, right? We'll just put that in. All right. Now, moving down. However, Shakespeare redeems Caliban through his appropriation of European culture, through the rejection of his master, Prospero's. Yeah, see how you sometimes you're saying one too many words here, like his master Prospero's teachings. Just say Prospero. We understand that, right? So I understand why you want to say master, but it just gets clunky and hard to say. And this is why you have to read your work out loud. I think that's going to really improve your writing here. Okay, so one less word for each of these. You can talk about the master-slave dynamic separately, but when you introduce the character, every time you say the character, you don't want to have to say Master Prospero's teachings. It's just hard to actually say that. Okay, so we'll put that under remove that part. Possess his books, for without them he's but a sot as I am. Okay. Shakespeare's use of dramatic irony is both the audience and Caliban understand Prospero's books as a metaphor for his knowledge of magical abilities. This actually doesn't make sense. His use of dramatic irony as both the audience understand books as a metaphor for his knowledge of magical abilities, thus revealing. It just that you've said, do you mean reveals? Like this bit I think should just be reveals. You've really got to read these out loud to understand where commas are meant to be, where other things are meant to be. Again, I don't want to focus too much on this grammar stuff, but it's hard for me to follow your point. And it'll be hard for the marker to follow your points if you haven't read your sentences out loud and put the commas where they're supposed to go and made the sentences shorter when it's getting too long and clunky. It reveals his intelligence and challenges the initial assumption of the colonized as savage. Okay. The one thing here is I'm not convinced by this redeems Caliban through his appropriation of culture. Possess his books, for he's but as sot as I am. Okay. Okay, he rejects them. I think you could find better evidence. This is selection of evidence. The issue here is selection of evidence about redeeming Caliban. Excuse me. I think you can get evidence of showing that he has this unique appreciation for nature, which contradicts his savage portrayal, right? So let's go to selection of evidence. And I think you not necessarily replace, but add to what you already have there about his appreciation for nature. You know, he says that the isle is full of sweet noises, or something like that, right? The isle is full of sweet sounds, something like that. Okay, don't quote me exactly on it, but he says something like that. He has this appreciation for nature, which contradicts, right, Prospero's kind of animalistic portrayal of him. What's happening here? Or barbaric. Okay, so something like that would be good if you could find something that shows that he's actually portrayed in a different way, because that's what Hagseed does a great job of doing. It shows how Caliban, and who's Caliban in Hagseed? Anyone who's doing Tempest Hagseed, Caliban is represented by all of the prisoners, the inmates, right? And she explores the potential for them to be redeemed, to actually learn from the lessons of Shakespeare, which is ironic, right? Because they're based on a character from Shakespeare, and that for them to actually be rehabilitated through the arts. And that's why arts are transformative, as your point suggested. So it's important we show that Caliban is represented in two different ways, just as Prospero is represented in two different ways. We can understand him, we can empathize with him, but he also comes across as a bit of a tyrant, a bit of a dictator who's taken control of the island. Now, Yog Tissue, just by the way, side note, I can't check all of them, so I'm just going through a couple because I like to do them properly so that everyone can learn different lessons. Again, you've got Jedd-AI on the Jedd-AI side if you want that instant feedback. Otherwise, put them through the link that is on this video and you will be in the queue. Otherwise, you can also go onto Jedd-AI and get community feedback. Okay, his intelligence challenging that. Yet Caliban is humanized further beyond his oppressive archetype, where he gains... oh, here you are as well. How funny is it? You're probably just looking at it thinking, does Jonny know that I'm going to literally use that quote? I think it should come earlier because I can see you've used sounds and sweet airs. So you can tell I'm really looking at this for the first time, just giving you fresh feedback here. But that quote should come up earlier because I wasn't convinced when I first saw the initial one, right? So just think about the placement there and merge in that with the above evidence that you've used. Okay, that would be my. I'm glad you have that in there, though. I'm glad you have that in there. So sentence length structure, I would just consider merging that, right? Grouping those. His eloquent language is in stark contrast to his earlier crude rejection of Prospero's teachings, challenging the initial assumption of the colonized as savage through the humanization of Caliban, revealed by, look, see, you're tending to do one too many clauses, okay? You need to get more concise with your expressions. It's too clunky. So this is really interesting, and I think this will help a lot of you, right? And I'm going to show you guys a marking criteria and the different categories that HSE markers will use. And I'm going to go through it with this one and show you how they'll arrive at your final mark, okay? Because this paragraph here is pitched at a really high level, like band 6 sophistication overall in terms of the ideas, but it's a bit clunky and it's a little bit excessive with the language and with the syntax, okay? A bit clunky there. So I'll show you where that would detract from and where this would do really well at in a second. In terms of Yeah, I mean, it's just in terms of, I'll put it to sentence length and structure. I mean, you've just got to shorten this, right? Forget about that part, just remove it. Thereby, I'd probably end it with therefore, by the way, small point. Shakespeare through Caliban, like I just, that doesn't flow. Just say through Caliban's transformative humanization, comma, Shakespeare challenges the initial European assumptions. The initial sounds funny as well. Get rid of that. Hello, Marnin, if I'm saying that correctly. Good to see you. That the colonized are savage. That the colonized are savage. Just say it challenges the prejudicial European assumptions, right? By revealing, or through the redemptive power of language. There we go. It challenges the prejudicial European assumptions through the redemptive power of language, right? Done. So that's how you can improve that one, okay? Hopefully that helps you. Now I want to show you guys that marking criteria. Really important you all look at this. This is going to be absolutely key, okay? I'm going to see if I can actually generate it up for you, and then I can take you through it. All right, so here's this response. Hopefully most of you have seen this. Let me take you through a marking criteria here, okay, that this would apply to. I'll even just do a general one here. So here's an example of a criteria. Now you'll get things like band 6, band 5, band 4, but let's do high, middle, low, okay? If we're considering the response that we just went through by Groovy, great paragraph of analysis. I'd be interested to see if you could actually write 4 of those with an intro and conclusion in 35 minutes. Find it hard to believe if you could. That's why you need to actually make your response way more concise. So make sure you time out your draft before you commit to learning that and go into an exam with it. But here we go. So here are the 3 categories that you guys are going to be judged on when you have your essay, okay? Answering the question. How well have you used evidence to support your argument? And how sophisticated was your writing? And, was it grammatically correct? Did it flow? Was it too clunky? Those are the things for written expression. Let's have a look at how this one answered the question, okay? Answered the question. It could have actually answered it's hard to judge on how well it answered the question because it was about how Atwood has actually challenged our assumptions about the present. But this paragraph was more focused on Shakespeare. So I'm not going to judge it too harshly on that. I'm just going to base it off your dealing with concepts, how well you dealt with the concepts. And I would say it's a high level response in terms of the ideas that were in it, okay? So you get an A, you get a band 6 for that particular category. What about how well you used evidence? Well, I think you actually could have used evidence a little bit better, but it was definitely still above the mid. So it's high because you referred to form, you had good choice of quotes. You even used quotes that I thought you might not have had, but you did have in the end. You just could have kind of grouped them together a little bit better. In terms of form, though, I'm just trying to think. You did talk about meter, which I like. Maybe you could have engaged a little bit more with the dramatic form in general, but I would say I would still put you in high for that as well. So you're on high. So band 6, use of evidence, answering question. It's just that written expression, which is going to bring you down to the mid-level, right? B, C range, band 5-ish, maybe 4 at some parts in terms of the clunkiness of it, okay? So you're right up there with 2 of the 3 categories. I think the main thing you need to work on is just your expression. And the best thing to do there is to read your sentences out loud, have someone else read them, get Grammarly switched on just for basic grammar and punctuation, and you'll be able to fix those issues up pretty quickly, okay? So great job, Groovy, overall. I like the arguments you were making, and you had some very high-level context in there. So I'm liking it. Great job. Okay, guys, so back to the chat. Back to the chat here. Hopefully you guys found that helpful. Groovy, great job. Glad that I got to experience that, got to read it. I think you're in good shape. All right. Now, how can I improve my unseen? Yassine, what do you mean by how can I improve my unseen? Do you mean how can you improve your responses to unseen texts? Just elaborate on your question a little bit there and should be able to help you. As for anyone else who's on here, guys, if you haven't seen in the link to these YouTube videos where I'm doing the live streams, you can actually submit essays for review. I will try and get to them over time. But if you want instant feedback, jump onto Jedd-AI's Jedd-AI tool, which is on Jedd-AI.com. That's where you'll find that. And you guys can join the community. Let me show you what that looks like. Let me show you guys right now because I don't want anyone to be confused by it. Let's have a look. This is really important. Okay, I'm going to add this. Here we go. This is just a teacher account here. If you guys sign up to Jedd-AI, maybe you've got some of the courses. Maybe you got Tempest Hagseed. Maybe you got Crucible 84. There's a lot on there. But whatever you're on, your courses will pop up here. Okay, your courses will pop up here. Then you can access those. So if you say, and this is essay writing. This is a good module as well. How do you structure different things? How do you write topic sentences? This is a module that we have. We've got like the video explainers breaking down all the structures for you. Lots of great content here, but that is not Jedd-AI. If you guys go to the Jedd-AI page and you go to Jedd-AI, once you subscribe to that, you can actually jump onto Feedback Hub. Okay, Feedback Hub. And I'm on a teacher view right now because I was just delivering feedback. But let me see if I can quickly get across to a student account. Give me 1 sec, guys. And I will show you the tool that you can use, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to pop that up here in a second and we'll get into it. Any other questions about your essays right now, just send them through, put them on the chat, and I will get to those. Otherwise, I think you guys are going to be pretty interested in what I'm about to show you. It's definitely a cool program. Let's pop it up. So I'm logging in. Here. I'm clicking Feedback Hub. I'm going to hope that it pops up for us here. Clicking Feedback Hub, and what do you know? We can go to Get Feedback. Get Feedback. This is where you can put in your essay straight away. This is the tool. Okay? Put in the essay question, put in your essay, request feedback, and you can ask the community. You can ask Jedd-AI, which will give you feedback in around 60 seconds. Analyze and annotate the entire essay and give you graded feedback like A to E. It'll tell you what band you're in, essentially. So it's a fantastic tool. You can do it for different types of tasks as well. And yeah, you're going to be pretty happy with that, I believe, once you get into it. See if we can, your drafts will pop up on the left side here. See if we can find an example somewhere here to show you guys. We'll see one that's, whether it's gone through Jedd-AI. Some of these have gone through other ones, but if you put something through Jedd-AI, you get examples of how to rewrite it. Okay, it's literally going to give you the example of how you can improve the sentence. Okay. So things like that are going to be on there. There's often actually a lot more feedback than this. So you can typically expect, 10 to 20 specific improvements to your response. So that's pretty cool. All right. Any questions about that or anything else? Okay. How much is it to use? It's something, I think at the moment it's like $39 a month. Oh, let me put the code for you guys. It is around 400, but we've had this code and I'll just put it in. I'll just put it here. It's FB24 is the discount. It's about $39 a month, right, to use it. You can get it for quarterly or yearly, and that is for Jedd-AI to use here. So there's the code for you, 25% discount on that, and you can put in full essays. I'm about to submit my Mod A essay. Are you able to review it? Put it in there, but I won't get back to it right now, guys. Just put in your responses so you're next in line, and we will announce on our socials, on Instagram, etc., Facebook. Join the Facebook English discussion group that's run by Jedd-AI, and you will find out when we are doing the next set of feedback. I'll try and get to it even within a week, few days if I can, to get another one going. And it'll be first in line. So submit them as soon as you can. Otherwise, just use Jedd-AI program to get it sooner. Yes, I'm going to do another live. Okay, I'm going to do another live stream for you guys. Okay, and Mark, thanks very much. Do check it out. Let me know if you guys have any questions about that. And please do spread the word. I would appreciate that. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. If there's any more, by the way, while I've got you here, YouTube videos, tutorials, things like that. I mean, obviously we're doing these live streams. What are some videos that you'd like us to upload in terms of, tutorial style videos? Put them in the chat right now so we can prioritize them for you. If you want to see tutorials on how to do a specific part of an essay, how to write, a thesis statement, how to unpack a question. Well, we've obviously got a lot of material out there on it, but I'm keen to know what you want to see most. What kind of content do you enjoy most on the YouTube or on other social media? Maybe it's on TikToks. Like, what do you want us to publish on the free social media channels? So let us know in the comments, and I will try and answer anything else, but we'll definitely be reviewing some more responses soon. How do you have a personal voice in essays? Your personal voice comes through not just by saying things like I believe or it is my opinion. It's actually more by having a firm stance on something, right? A firm stance on something. So that means don't kind of be neutral. You need to actually be making an argument. I know that sounds so obvious, but if you want to have a personal voice, present a firm argument. Like, for example, if a question was like, Isma, give me an example of a text that you study, and I can actually give you an example that applies to you. But coming up with an argument means you don't just kind of agree with the question and go along with it fully. You make an argument that says something quite specific, right? It says something specific, and then you back it up. So power does not just corrupt, right? Maybe it's like, oh, power corrupts. You know how power can corrupt people? Maybe you say power does not just corrupt. It also does this. And then you say something specific there that shows you're actually having a personal voice there. You're expressing something that doesn't just repeat the question and what everyone else is saying. But you don't need to stand out too much in terms of having some original idea. You just need to present an argument that feels authentic, which means it's actually specific, right? So power doesn't just corrupt. Power doesn't just corrupt. Power imprisons, right? And then you talk about that. It's like, okay, it doesn't just corrupt you, it imprisons you. You become a victim of your own ego when you are consumed by the desire for power. And what I just came up with there is a really strong thesis, an argument. I'm saying, no, it doesn't just corrupt you, it takes hold of you, right? Or maybe that's how it corrupts you. But either way, that's a specific line of argument, and that's going to help you have more of a personal voice. It's not just by saying, I believe, or this is my opinion, but it is by presenting a very firm argument that doesn't just kind of sit on the fence. So don't sit on the fence. Present something that you genuinely believe in, and present it in a way where you're showing the complexity. So try and use a word like, whilst this is true, this is also true. Whilst this might be the case, it is also true that this. So if you can show that you're kind of agreeing with what people generally think and then adding your own 2 cents by using a word like whilst or however, but yet, if you use the words Isma, however, but yet, you're probably going to have more of a personal voice. That's a good practical tip. Okay, Evie, appreciate the feedback as well there. Breaking down essay questions. Okay, breaking down essay, we can do that. Good suggestions here. Some specific quotes and techniques for texts. Definitely can do that. We can provide some more evidence. Obviously, the Jedd-AI resources, if you go to Jedd-AI.com, I know I'm plugging the platform a lot here, but honestly, the resources have all the quotes you could want, but we can definitely try and incorporate them into some of our videos where we have examples of analysis. The crucible. So Ismail, what I was saying before kind of applies there. You're talking about, if you want to have personal voice, try and look at the main themes using language that not everyone uses. So maybe actually use the word voice in the crucible and say, because it's all about how everyone is tempted to fit in to the community by lying, like by continuing to go along with the witchcraft narrative. So maybe you say, by staying true to your own personal narrative, you risk falling outside of the communal narrative and facing punishment, right? So you're saying, we're focusing on that word narrative. I was about to do voice, but narrative works as well. So by maintaining, by staying true, by remaining true to one's own personal narrative, one's own personal truth, they risk facing exclusion from the broader social narrative. Okay, and that's presenting an argument that a lot of people make, but it's saying it in a way that where you focus on that idea of a narrative, a story. You might say, by maintaining the integrity of your own voice, you risk disappointing the voices of your community and therefore being punished. Okay, that's a kind of argument you could make for the crucible. In terms of how do you incorporate high-level context, make specific contextual links throughout. So when you link to context, don't just say things like, this reflects Shakespeare's context. Don't just say, this reflects Shakespeare's Elizabethan context. Instead say, this reflects the patriarchal values or even the supernatural values of Shakespeare's Elizabethan context. So see how I got more and more specific in those examples? Get more specific. Don't just refer to the general context. Refer to a specific value. If you can just do that throughout, referring to different specific values that are relevant to each of your points or evidence, you're going to elevate the standard of your writing. Okay. I didn't get an A for not putting enough context in my common mod essay. Okay. Miriam, do I need to submit for your next lesson, or am I still in the queue? Yeah, if you've already submitted and I haven't gone through it, then you should still be in the queue. But do resubmit it if you're unsure, because we'll look at the ones that have doubled up. So maybe you're safest to resubmit if you want to be sure, but otherwise you would still be in the queue. Hopefully I helped answer that context question. It's just by making specific reference to those values. I can see that's coming up a lot. And also, guys, general rule of thumb for context. If in your essays you don't have at least one specific link to context per paragraph throughout, right? Certainly in your introduction, you need to introduce the overall context, but in your body paragraphs, at least one specific contextual reference, if not two. I would be going for two for Module A for sure. Module A, at least two. Otherwise, at least one per paragraph. You're immediately going to be deducted marks, essentially, because you're not engaging with the context of the actual text. That's crazy. You have to actually include that in your argument to make sense of everything you're talking about. We need to know where Shakespeare was coming from when he was presenting these ideas. You've got to tell us, this is what was happening at the time. This is what people valued. Here's why he actually presented this, right? Otherwise, you're just going on with themes, but you're not grounding it in context so we can appreciate why those ideas are being represented. You can't really answer the why if you don't link things to context, personal context, historical context, cultural context, all of those different types. Okay. Maybe have the live streams where you analyze past Band 6 responses. It doesn't have to be the entire essay. Good 15, 20-minute discussion. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. So what I can do is actually pull up an example or an extract or some extracts of Band 6 materials and talk to you. And I can actually compare them to a Band 4 or Band 5. I think that's a really valuable exercise if you can see the difference. So I can certainly make some videos on that. If I repeat the same words from the question as I adapt it, does it lack sophistication? It does if you are just repeating the question. So the balance you guys need to achieve when you're trying to answer the question is, yes, you want to use the words of the question, but no, you don't want to just repeat the words of the question. So whenever you use the words of the question, you have to expand on it which means you have to say one specific thing about it. So if you're talking about power, tell me the type of power you're talking about. Political power? Good. If you say political power, that already sounds 10 times better than just saying the power, reveals power. It reveals political power. Well, it reveals what about political power? It reveals the corruptibility of political power. Wow, now you're actually saying something specific about that key term, power. So that's how you go beyond just repeating the question. You expand on it every time you use it, but you still do use the word, but you've expanded. Okay. So some good suggestions here from everyone. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Let's see if I practice more unseen questions. The unseen questions, Yassine. Yeah, there's some good YouTube videos we've got out on how to respond and how to like write 4 markers, 5 markers. Also some great modules on that on the Jedd-AI site. If I practice more unseen questions, will my analytical skills improve? Yeah, absolutely, they will, because that's getting you used to different types of text, like poems, visuals, prose fiction extracts. So definitely practice unseen questions, and practice is the best thing you can do to prepare for that section of your exam, which is the same amount of marks as every other section, 20 marks. They're all 20. You'd be crazy not to prepare for the unseen questions. And the best way to do that is to do practice questions. That's the best way to prepare for that. How many stories should I write and how to remember? Well, how to memorize, jump on to Jedd-AI's YouTube if you're not already on it right now. Type in Jedd-AI, how to memorize an essay, right? And I will go through all the steps on how to memorize. You just learn it like a speech, essentially. And then Mod C, how many stories should I write? Well, in terms of preparation for Module C, I would have one core draft. So one core story or imaginative, and then I would have a core discursive and persuasive that are kind of tied to that core imaginative if that's your primary draft. So you want to be kind of talking about the same thing in all of those. And then once you have that core draft, right, you want to do lots of practice to different stimuli so that you're very flexible with it, and also so you can make a more adaptable draft. So you'll be making changes as you do more practice. But there's no escaping having to practice looking at different questions, different types of questions, different stimuli where you get images, quotes, get good at adapting to those. One core draft is a good starting point, and then doing lots of practice. And if you find that you need to change up your draft because it's not really working for a lot of the stimuli that you're looking at, a lot of the questions, then change it. But I would say one core discursive, which is a variation of that, and one core persuasive, which is a variation of the discursive. They should all be about a similar issue or topic though. And I would make that topic somewhat related to the process of writing, the nature of literature itself, because that's what a lot of stimuli and questions tend to focus on. The nature of writing itself is the topic. Something exploring the value of literature, how literature has changed over time, how certain people have been represented in literature, the struggle to actually write, writing about the process of writing, writing about the process of writing, writing about someone trying to write a story. There's a lot of good examples of that on the prescribed text list. And if you can write about the nature of writing, I think you're going to be well prepared for a lot of different Module C questions. No worries, Yassine. And Zane, last question. When you're molding your essay to an unseen exam question, would you need to mention relevance to the exam question in every single analysis? It's good to try and, even if it's just one word that's, that you have to change in your analysis. So when you're talking about the effect of your quotes, if you're linking that to the question just through one word even, that's usually sufficient. But I would definitely make much more of an effort for your introduction. Every sentence of your introduction has to clearly relate to the question, and the topic sentences also have to have the actual words of the question in them, but make sure you're expanding and breaking them down and actually presenting a meaningful idea that isn't just repeating the question. So introduction and topic sentences are the most important for sure. And then even if you can just weave in one word per sentence of analysis, maybe more, maybe some of them you don't have it, but I would just go for at least one. You're giving the marker no doubt that you're answering that specific question, and that's what they look for. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Been a pleasure. Hopefully that has been helpful for you. I'll see you guys in the next one. Make sure you submit on the link. go visit Jedd-AI. Remember that there's a discount there for you. FB24 will give you 25% off the Jedd-AI subscription, and you can access the community of feedback on there and also use Jedd-AI, which we're going to continue to improve. So thank you very much, everyone. See you in the next one. Hopefully check in with you next week.